Normally on a finance channel, you're going to see video after video about saving your money, and that's because most people don't do a good enough job of saving their money. But today we're going to talk about the opposite side of the coin, spending money. And that is important to your finances because no one can get through life without spending money. It's like oxygen that we breathe or the meals that we eat. It's something that you have to do in order to live. So you might as well do it well. So today we're going to talk about spending money well, or in other words, ways that you can spend money that both benefit your life and maybe even your finances. Hi, I'm Samuel, and if you're new to the channel, welcome, and if not, welcome back. I'm glad that you came. So spending money is something that we all have to do, but just because you're spending money doesn't mean you're spending money in a way that will benefit your financial life. There are some decisions that certainly can benefit your financial life. For example, if you are able to purchase a home in a good area that is likely to gain in value, that is a great way to spend your money because in 20 years, when you go to sell the home potentially, your home is going to be worth a lot more than you actually paid for it, meaning that it was an asset that was used to help build your wealth. And in the meantime, you have a nice place to stay because everybody needs a place to live. But if you purchase a home that maybe you can't afford or in an area that isn't the best and all it winds up doing is costing you more money and potentially the home goes down in value when you go to sell it, that could be something that can severely harm your financial life, which is why so many people talk about and emphasize the importance of making a good decision when it comes to purchasing of your home. But it doesn't have to be a purchase as big as your home to matter. It can be a general philosophy around spending money. So here are some things that I like to think about when I go to spend money. Okay, so number one is the most obvious: can I afford whatever I'm about to spend money on? And this can be something as big as a home or a car purchase, or it could be something as small as just ordering that $10 thing off of Amazon. And when I say, can I afford this, what I mean is it part of my financial plan? So there are two components to this whole thing. There is the actual need and the affordability. So just because you can afford something doesn't necessarily mean it's a good financial purchase. But if you actually do need something, even if it makes things tight, it might make sense to move forward with the purchase. For example, even if it doesn't feel like it's the most optimal time to purchase a home, if it's right for you and you can afford it, going forward with the purchase in the long term is probably a good idea. So that's number one. Can you afford it? And number two, mentioned in there, what is the long-term effect of this purchase? So if you are buying a home, you want to generally be buying a home that you're going to live in for the next 7 to 10 years. And that's statistically where most people fall on home purchases. Generally speaking, homes are expensive and the market does fluctuate from time to time, and going through home after home after home after home might not be the best for your finances. The last few years have been a little bit of an exception to that rule. But generally speaking, the larger the purchase, especially when it comes to home, the longer term you want to look. Now, the second biggest purchase you are going to make is probably something like a car. And these two things, affordability and long-term use, are two concepts that people just lose their minds with when it comes to cars. People generally purchase more of a car that they can afford and drive the car less time than they should. And this is why people continue to roll negative equity into the next car, negative equity into the next car, negative equity into the next car, and you take something that is already depreciating rapidly and add negative equity onto it while paying interest on it. It's just not a good thing. If you do that for too long, it's going to drain you financially in ways that you probably wouldn't realize unless you looked at it on paper. Now, everybody needs a car, and you should buy one that is reliable, so do your research and make sure that whatever you buy, you're buying something for the long term. If you can buy a newer car and drive it for 10 years, that would be wonderful. And that brings up another point. If you are going to be spending a lot of money, you should definitely be researching what you're buying. No one should ever buy a home without getting a home inspection. You should never buy a car used without having someone take a look at it. You should never make a large purchase without doing some level of due diligence, because if you don't, you could wind up making a mistake that could have been easily avoided by having a second pair of eyes, or even in some cases, a simple Google search. You want to make sure that you're spending your money well and effectively, and what you are buying is worth what you are paying. So another thing when it comes to both homes, vehicles, and a lot of these other larger purchases is purchase with the mindset of, if it breaks, I'm gonna try to fix it first. And I understand that it doesn't always make sense, especially with a car, to actually repair a vehicle. But a lot of people, at the first sign of problems with anything, it could be a home, it could be a vehicle, or any other large purchase, rather than trying to fix the issue, they'll immediately look for a replacement. And this can be true of anything from a home or car all the way down to your phone. If you shatter the glass on your iPhone screen, you could buy a new iPhone and spend another $1,100, or you could pay to have them replace your screen, and it might make your phone last a little bit longer. If you are thinking in the long term and spending money effectively, a repair might be a great way to go. So the point of all three of these are to say, can I afford it? And if I am going to purchase it, can I keep it for a long time? And will I try to repair it instead of jumping to something new when something goes wrong? And I think that's a good way to look at most purchases, but it's not universal. Obviously, there are caveats to all of these. Okay, but those are the big purchases. What about your everyday items? Well, again, it comes down to affordability. And when I talked about that $10 item on Amazon, I'm not sitting there stressing out about whether or not I can afford to spend $10, because the truth is, of course I can spend $10. But do I need to spend it in that moment? Do I need to wait until we get our next paycheck? Have we maxed out that category in the budget? And believe it or not, a great way to save money is actually delaying purchases. If I can wait a few days or maybe even a few weeks to decide if I really need something, I might find out I didn't really need that item I was looking at on Amazon for $10. I just really wanted it and I was fine with spending the $10. Or I may realize that yes, that's important and I really do need it, and I spend it. That means that I'm not wasting money on things that I don't actually need or won't actually use. And here's the way to think about this. It's actually freeing. If I am going to use the item, and if the item is going to add value to my life, of course, I will be happy to spend the money on it. On the flip side, if it's not something that I really need, and if it's something that is just going to add clutter to my home because I'm not using it, why would you want to spend $10 on something like that? It's literally like paying someone to keep their trash in your house. It doesn't make sense. Add to the list things that I won't buy, stuff that I don't need or won't use. But things that I will buy, things that I find value in. Another thing that I am willing to spend money on from time to time is if it adds convenience to my life. Your time is worth something, and while some people take that way too far, the truth of the matter is if you can spend a little bit of money here or there to get back some of your time, especially in our busy society, it's probably worthwhile. For example, my wife and I were trying to decide whether or not we should purchase a robot vacuum cleaner, which can range anywhere from $100 to a few $100. It runs automatically during the day while we're at work, and it can help us feel a little more clean because we have pets, things get messy, and it's nice to have a vacuum cleaner running every single day. So in our analysis of how we spend our time and what we do, it was worth it. It adds value to our life. The next thing that I would spend money on is almost the opposite of that. We own an espresso machine, and that's because we enjoy drinking lattes, and we don't want to go to Starbucks every time we want a latte. Now, it takes some time for the amount of money that you initially put into a machine to catch up with the amount of money you would have spent going to Starbucks to get a latte, but in the long run, we'll spend a lot less money making the coffee at home, and it gives us a new skill to learn and enjoy in the meantime. Another thing that I think is totally worth spending money on is learning, your education. If you can spend $10 a month on a subscription to a video platform, you can certainly spend You can certainly spend $10 a month purchasing a book on Amazon. Expanding your knowledge and education is something that will make you a better individual, and the truth is, it's a lot cheaper than most of us realize. Another thing that I think would be worthwhile if you can afford spending money on is your health. If you can afford spending money on a little bit better food, it's probably a very worthwhile investment. Warren Buffett always talks about the importance of taking care of your body. He says if he could buy you a car, whatever car you wanted, but the catch was it was the last car you could ever drive, how well would you take care of that car? And obviously the analogy is we only get one body and we should be taking care of it. There's no point in ending up very wealthy and retired one day, but not being physically well. And health is a part of wealth. So spending a little bit more to eat a little bit better and maybe to have a gym membership that you pay for monthly, certainly a worthwhile investment, in my opinion. So I'm sure there are a million other things that would be worthwhile in spending money on. So you tell me in the comments down below, what do you think is worth spending money on? Or how do you try to think about spending money? I'm Samuel. Thank you so much for coming. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give the video a like. Thumbs up really helps us. Or subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And we'll see you again next Tuesday. Thanks.